as a leader, you feel such responsibility. You feel like actually it's on me, and therefore I do need to take ownership of all of this.
The question is from Thinking Focus.
Hello, I'm Richard from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Ricky from Thinking Focus.
And today the question is, why do leaders need to consider the impact of their job on their personal life?
What a question.
Well, actually, Ricky, before we dive in, let's just let all our listeners know that this podcast is one of 4 pillars of leadership that we're going to discuss over a series of podcasts. We started this in podcast 61, which was in what ways do senior leaders need to be aware of what's happening around them. So if you want to go back and just build on this one, you can go back to 61. This pillar is around the pillars called personal pillar. And as we said, the question is, why do leaders need to consider the impact of their job on their personal life? We'll give you more information about the whole model at the end of the podcast, and there'll be a link on our website as well. So, Ricky, what are your thoughts on that then?
Well, it's an interesting question in that there's a lot of times where leaders get so immersed in their role that often their kind of personal life becomes almost like an add-on. It's secondary because they're so focused on the career.
Yeah.
And how do you balance all of the elements within that to kind of keep, well, I suppose, create an equilibrium in terms of balance in the force, so to speak.
And do you think sometimes, certainly I've noticed quite often what happens is people are very ambitious, want to get the next role, want to get a big job, and they sort of move further and further into it. And this creeps up on them, this thing that actually the job is now so big that it has a huge impact on them outside of work as well. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I think particularly when they're ambitious, they're climbing the ladder, they want to, so they invest a lot of time in their career, almost to the exception of everything else. They fit the other things around it when they can, as opposed to having designated time allocated for parts of that. And of course, as a leader, you feel such responsibility. You feel like actually it's on me, and therefore I do need to take ownership of all of this. And the one thing that has probably the most accountability attached to it is your job. And that probably plays out in why they feel like that, why they operate in that way.
And this is why we talk about this pillar of a senior leader, this personal pillar, because if you get into a senior leadership position, it's about having the awareness that it will have an impact upon all areas of your life, and if you have for some people, work might be the number one priority, and that's absolutely fine. Career might be the number one priority. But it's about the awareness that when we get into these senior positions, it will have, you'll have to compromise. And that might mean that there's compromises to be made with family, with friends, with other interests, with other things, because a senior job could be so big that you've got to make some sacrifices and you've got to do some prioritizing of those things. And can you cope with that? And what's the impact of that on loved ones around you, and whether that's husbands, wives, kids, partners, whatever that might be. And I guess we're not saying that it's wrong to have that, to have the big job and to put that first. What we're doing when we start to work with leaders around this pillar is to bring that to the forefront of their mind, that they're going to need to think about that and those compromises they might need to make. So Ricky, if you think about that, I guess one of the things that you'd need to think about is having a strong support network around you.
Totally. And I think probably if I reflect back, one of my weaknesses in a leadership role is that you kind of just get on with it and you justify it to yourself that it's for the good of the family, and therefore they should just understand. You don't engage them in the conversation about what that means for them, what that means for you, what that means for you as a group.
So when you say, the good of the family, you mean actually you're earning good money, you're able to bring a level of security, comfort, certain lifestyle.
Yeah, well, I mean, I always go, it's the job we do, it's the role that we have that enables us to live the life that we do. And that, will be good, bad, or indifferent at different times. But generally, what comes with a leadership role are some, I don't want to call them perks, but they come with some rewards, don't they? So, and you then invest in nice holidays, maybe a bigger house, but everything kind of gets upgraded. And then, of course, you're chasing that because you don't want to lose it. You don't want your family to have to go backwards within that. And actually, the real important question is, what do we want as a family? What's important to us as a family? And actually, you working, however many hours, 80 plus hours a week, is that what the family really wants? And they probably give up some of those nice things in order to have you available for more time.
Yeah. So it certainly is something for people that are either in senior leadership listening to this or getting into senior leadership to be aware of that. It is almost impossible to be amazing at everything that you've got going on in your life, and everything being, the job, the role, the leader, the mother, the father, the partner, the family member, the brother, the sister, member of the local, I don't know, dance club or whatever it is that people do. It's almost impossible to be amazing at that. So that might mean that you've got to make some compromises in standards elsewhere in things that you do. And again, that's okay. That is absolutely okay. But it's being aware of it. And we say that again, it's being aware of it because what we observe and perhaps what we've felt in our lives is that this has snuck up on us a little bit. You've suddenly realized that you are perhaps not as present at some family occasions, even if you are there, or maybe you miss some. And that will bring other pressures to bear that might affect your performance at work.
Well, it could be even more obvious than that in terms of people, we're very connected these days, we're on the phone all the time. An email might come in and that might change your mental state from, being in the moment to actually now I'm not in the moment, I'm in a different moment. Because I've received an email from a colleague, from somebody at work or whatever it might be. And I think, it's really interesting that I think you said it earlier on in the session is that actually, do we engage our families in this discussion? Do they understand this is, because it's easy to believe this is forever when actually it might be, this, I'm just getting started. It's a new role. I'm new into post. I'm just setting some ground rules, some foundations for me in this new role. Or actually, like you said, it snuck up on me and I'm 2 years into post and nothing's changed and I'm still working all hours God sends. And that is at the detriment of my, family. And often that then causes additional pressures that clearly are not easy to deal with when you've got a big role.
Well, certainly from people that we coach who are in senior leadership positions, I think a lot of them talk about the fact that, the jobs are so interesting, so exciting, so diverse and challenging that they get a lot of excitement from that. But also they're so big, there's not enough time to do the job. But also there's often an organizational culture that means that you have to behave and act in a certain way if you're in a senior leadership team. So you feel pressure from others around you as well, to be ever present, to be attending everything, to be all over everything. Because if you're not, then other people will look like they are, and therefore you're not perhaps across things as others. And that can lead to conflict, to challenges, to questions being asked. So, and whether that pressure is real or imagined is often debatable. But we see that, don't we, that actually environmental and organizational pressures can cause these long hours and cause this way of thinking.
Yeah, totally. And I think, you also reflect back to say, the pre-pandemic days where actually senior leaders were also expected to be out about after hours, to be representing the organization that they work for. So there's a lot of social activities. So you're now starting to miss the kids going to bed or helping with the homework, and that puts pressure on your partner, and that's that dynamic operates whether it's in a male environment or a female environment. The pressure is still there to try and please everybody. But of course, like you said, we've got to accept that things do give. We have to sacrifice certain elements. But do we communicate? Do we share? Do we have that conversation with the family to understand, actually, this is for a period of time? Actually, there is somebody else that could do that. Actually, this one actually does need me because.
But that's really interesting, isn't it? Because what an individual might do is make some choices about their career and where they want to go and how successful they want to be. And maybe that individual doesn't engage with, as you say, with the family to say, right, we need to work out what our priorities are, because, mum's role or dad's role or whatever it might be, whoever they are, is going to require an awful lot of time in that area. What are the other priorities in our family? What are the things that in your personal lives that you need to protect and look after? Because I think what certainly I felt it in my career, you can almost feel things slipping at times because you put in so much effort into work, and then actually that then places extra pressure and stress upon you to try and redress it, and you're constantly juggling these things which are difficult to juggle. But so you're saying, aren't you, actually sit down and have that conversation, talk about the size of the task, the role, your career, your ambition, and how does that fit in with the dynamics that you've got on in the support networks that you need?
I think you have to. I think, that gives you an inner peace as an individual. You get to understand, you get to talk to the family in terms of what it means for you. The family understands some of the challenges and pressures you're on, but all too often we kind of just get immersed in it. And before you know it, the cracks are starting to appearing in relationships. And that could be with your children, that could be with your partner. Those start to emerge. But I think, the one thing is about, let's be clear, what's important to us as a family. Is this the role that's going to give us what we want as a family, as well as giving me my needs as somebody who needs that challenge and that excitement, that energy, in order to connect and do something meaningful from a personal perspective.
And it's also, as well, we talk about this pillar, this personal pillar. Having reflected over the last 12 months, when we've seen an awful lot of leaders be exhausted because they've worked so hard to make sure businesses remain viable, to flip and make sure that they could work differently, to constantly provide leadership in uncertain times, work longer hours, work harder, like many of us have done. But you see people being exhausted, and therefore you also know that has an impact upon life outside of work, doesn't it? And we all need to, and we'll talk, more. We've talked more about this in other podcasts as well, around being resilient. We need to get a break sometimes to enable us to continue to operate at a high pace. You've got to slow down to speed up again.
Totally. And I think, exhaustion mentally and physically will kick in. And of course, you cannot operate effectively if you're knackered. Forgive the phrase. But if you're absolutely dog tired, how are you going to perform at your best? And actually, sometimes it's not exactly slowing down necessarily. It's doing something that energizes you in a different way or re-energizes you. Sometimes that's rest, relaxation. That could be the sunbed by the pool, or it could be actually doing something active. But you've got to find out, what is important to you in your personal life. You've got to work out, how do you carve out time to do that and do that well? Because you can't be the best at everything, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it and do it to a level that works for you and your family.
What we're saying here is that it is a bit of a harsh reality. Big roles will impact all of your life. It's not just that you're working hard. That will have a knock-on impact. Are you aware of that knock-on impact? Are you creating a network around you that also understands that impact and can help you compensate and reprioritize so you can make the most out of the other bits of life. Being aware as well of the environmental and organizational culture that's around you that maybe forces you to work in that way, and maybe you want that, and that's fine. But all this is about having awareness of it early, so you can, as Ricky says, have those conversations, put things in place that will allow you to excel at work and do okay with the other things that are important to you as well.
It'll be a lot easier with the support of your family and friends around you than trying to manage and cope with this on your own. So yeah, absolutely.
Next time on The Question Is.
If you'd like to know more about our Pillars of Leadership model, you can check it out on our website at www.thinkingfocus.com/pillars of leadership. That's pillars of leadership.
To find out how Thinking Focus can unlock the potential within your organization, go to www.thinkingfocus.com, where you'll discover more about the work we do, helping our clients increase productivity and enable change.